The alien fleet drifted through the dark silence of space. Their silver ships shone faintly as they glided past the scattered stars. The crew on the main flagship felt calm, almost bored, after weeks of patrol duty. The monitors showed nothing unusual, only empty space, endless and quiet. "Another silent night," muttered one officer, his voice flat with routine. He leaned back in his seat, scanning the screens without interest. The commander, tall and strict, with piercing black eyes, stood at the center of the bridge. He folded his arms and said, "Stay sharp. Silence often hides danger." The crew exchanged tired glances but nodded. They had heard this warning before. Nothing ever happened in this sector. Humans were long gone, reduced to whispers in history. Other empires were too far away. There was nothing to fear. Then one of the younger officers frowned. His eyes locked onto a strange flicker at the edge of the sensor display. At first, he thought it was just a glitch, maybe static interference from a nearby star, but the reading grew stronger. "Commander," he said quietly, "there's something here." The commander turned his gaze. "What is it?" The officer hesitated. "An energy spike, large, but it's faint, like it's far away." "Show me." The display shifted, zooming toward the region of space where the reading came from. For a moment, there was nothing, just blackness. Then, like a shadow, peeling away from the darkness, a faint outline appeared, huge, much bigger than their largest battleship. The room fell silent. Even the hum of the machines felt softer. "That can't be real," whispered another crew member, his voice trembling. "Run a full scan," ordered the commander. The sensors swept across the object. Lines of data filled the monitors. The crew leaned in, their expressions tightening with every number that appeared. "It's a ship," one officer finally said. His voice cracked with disbelief. "A warship." The commander's jaw tightened. "Whose design?" The officer swallowed. "Not ours. Not from any empire we know." He hesitated, then added in a low voice, "Commander, it looks human." The word hung heavy in the air. Human. A species thought broken and scattered, their fleets destroyed long ago. The archive spoke of them as dangerous but primitive, incapable of building ships that could challenge great empires. Yet here, in front of them, floated a vessel that dwarfed their entire fleet. "That's impossible," whispered the communications officer. "Humans don't have ships like that. They never did." The commander stared at the dark silhouette on the screen. Its structure was strange, angular, sharp, almost aggressive. The hull looked old, scarred by ancient battles, yet still intact. No insignia, no glowing banners of empire, just silence and shadow. "Are we sure it's not debris?" asked one of the younger crew. His hands shook as he tried to convince himself. It could be a ruin, something abandoned. The sensors beeped, answering for him. "No," said the officer at the console. His voice was cold now. "It's active. Power readings are rising." A chill spread through the bridge. The commander's voice dropped low, steady but tense. "Open. A wide-band hail. Demand identification." "Yes, sir." The communications officer pressed the controls, sending signals across multiple frequencies. Static hissed back at them. No reply. He tried again, and again. Nothing but silence. Then, suddenly, the lights on the ship flickered. Not their ship, the shadow outside. Dim lines glowed across its hull, like veins of fire waking from a long sleep. The crew stared as the shape grew clearer and its size became undeniable. "By the stars," someone breathed. The commander felt the weight of history pressing on his chest. If this was human, if this was real, then the galaxy had been wrong about their extinction. The ship's outline sharpened. Towers and weapon ports jutted from its massive frame. Its dark hull reflected nothing, absorbing the starlight around it. It looked less like a vessel and more like a predator rising from the deep void. One officer whispered, "It's watching us." "How can you know that?" Another snapped, fear rising in his voice. Because, the officer said, pointing to the shifting data on the screen, its sensors are locked on us, every single one. The commander took a deep breath. He had led fleets through dangerous wars. He had seen planets burn. But nothing in his long service felt as heavy as the silent presence of that ship. "Arm defensive shields," he ordered quietly. The crew scrambled, fingers moving fast across panels. The hum of energy filled the bridge as shields activated. The commander kept his eyes on the dark vessel. For a long moment nothing happened, just the deep, endless silence of space. Then the alien fleet's sensors picked up a pulse, a low, steady vibration. It wasn't a weapon, but a signal, a sound, a human sound. The bridge filled with a deep tone, heavy and haunting. None of them understood the words, but the meaning was clear. It was a warning. The younger officer's voice cracked as he said, "It's not a mistake that it's here. It came for us." The commander said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on the warship. He could feel it, an intelligence hidden within, patient and merciless. The ship didn't move. It didn't fire. It only waited, its glowing lines slowly brightening like the eyes of something alive. Fear spread through the bridge like a disease. The silence was worse than an attack. It made their hearts race, their hands sweat, their minds scream for answers. The commander finally spoke, his voice a whisper meant only for himself. "What are you?" But no answer came, only the endless hum of that ancient, impossible ship, watching. The bridge of the alien flagship was tense. Every screen showed the same impossible sight. The massive shadow ship floating silently in the void, its glowing lines burning brighter as if it had awakened from a long sleep. The crew sat frozen, afraid to breathe too loud, afraid the ship might hear them. One officer finally broke the silence. "Commander, it hasn't moved. Not a single weapon has fired. Maybe it's old. Maybe it can't fight anymore." The commander's sharp eyes flicked to him. "Do you see fear in this room? That's because every instinct tells us the opposite. That ship is dangerous. Do not fool yourself." The officer swallowed hard and lowered his gaze. Another crew member whispered, "But it's human. It must be. The shape, the structure." The archives showed similar patterns. How could humans build this? They were not capable. The commander's voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. If it is human, then history lied to us, and if history lied, we must ask why. Suddenly, the sensors beeped again. A pulse of energy flashed across the display. The warship's power levels spiked, rising steadily. "They're charging something," said the science officer, his hands shaking as he read the numbers. "The energy signature is enormous. I've never seen anything like it." The commander stepped closer. To the main screen, his voice was low, steady. "Do not break formation. Do not provoke it. If it wanted us dead, we would already be gone." But the crew did not look convinced. Fear was spreading faster than discipline. "Why isn't it answering our hails?" the communications officer asked, almost pleading. "We've tried every frequency, every code. If they are human, why not speak to us?" "Perhaps," said the commander, his voice like stone, "silence is their message." The words sent another wave of unease through the bridge. Then, for the first time, the ship moved, slowly, heavily, like a giant waking from centuries of sleep. The shadow vessel turned. Its front, lined with weapons the aliens had no name for, faced directly toward the alien fleet. The crew gasped. Several officers leaned back from their stations as though the ship's gaze could burn through the walls. "It's targeting us," one officer whispered. On the sensor display, small red lights began to appear. They marked weapon systems, each one locking onto their fleet. The number grew higher, then higher still, until the screen glowed with dozens of targeting lines. "All weapons trained on us," the science officer said weakly. "Even our entire fleet couldn't survive one volley." The commander clenched his fists behind his back. He would not show fear. "Hold position," he ordered. If they wanted war, they would have opened fire already. The silence stretched on. Every second felt like an eternity. The alien officers sat rigid, their eyes glued to the screens. Then a sound filled the bridge, a deep vibration, low and metallic, as though the ship itself was growling. It rolled through their speakers and shook their bones. "What is that?" asked one of the younger crew. The communications officer adjusted the signal filters. "It's language. Ancient. Fragmented. It's human." "Translate it," the commander ordered. The officer hesitated. I don't think I can. The system doesn't recognize most of it, but one phrase it repeats." He swallowed, his voice trembling as he said the words aloud. "Stand down." The bridge froze. "That's impossible," whispered the science officer. "How could they know our language protocols?" "They don't," the commander said. His face was grim. "They're not talking to us. They're speaking in their own tongue. And still we understand the meaning." Before anyone could reply, the ship's lights surged again. Energy flared across its hull. For a moment, the alien fleet thought it was about to fire. Several officers shouted in panic, but no attack came. Instead, a single beam of light shot into the darkness, not at them, but into empty space. The beam cut through the void like a blade, carving a line of pure fire across nothingness. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped. "What was that?" one officer asked, his voice shaking. The science officer stared at his readings. "A warning shot," he said softly. "That single blast could have erased half our fleet." The crew's fear deepened. Sweat rolled down their faces, claws tapped nervously on the consoles, eyes darted anywhere but the screen. "They're playing with us," one officer muttered. "They want us to know they could kill us whenever they choose." The commander's gaze stayed fixed on the shadow ship. "Or they want us to make a choice." No one spoke after that. The only sound was the hum of machines and the distant growl of the human warship. Finally, the commander turned to his officers. "We cannot run. If we do, it will chase. We cannot fight. If we try, we are dead. The only path is to understand." "Understand." "What?" asked the communications officer. The commander stared into the void at the monstrous ship that seemed more alive than machine. "Understand why it is here." The ship's weapons still glowed, but they did not fire. Its silence was heavier than any attack, pressing on their minds, demanding an answer. One young officer, his hands trembling, whispered, "Commander, maybe the stories were true. Maybe humans never died. Maybe they were only waiting." The commander's eyes narrowed. He did not believe in myths. He believed in what he could see, and right now he saw a nightmare that could destroy them with a single breath. But deep inside, a cold thought stirred. What if the young officer was right? The shadow ship loomed larger, filling the screen. Its lights pulsed in slow rhythm like a heartbeat, watching, waiting, and for the first time, the commander felt something he had never felt in his long years of war. Not anger, not pride, but a quiet, suffocating fear that history itself had lied to them, and that the truth was far worse. The warship did not fire. It only waited, its presence swallowing the stars around it. The alien fleet sat frozen, knowing that every second alive was a gift given by something far older, far deadlier, and far more patient than they could imagine. The alien fleet held its breath as the massive warship floated before them, silent and unshaken. Every scanner, every monitor, every heartbeat on the flagship was locked onto the dark shape. Its lights pulsed slowly, like the beat of some giant heart, and the alien crew could feel the weight of its presence pressing down on them. The communications officer's hands shook as he tried again. "Sending another hail. All frequencies. All codes." His voice cracked with desperation. Still nothing. No reply. "Keep trying," the commander ordered firmly. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed tension. "Do not stop until they answer." One officer leaned closer to his console. His skin was pale, his eyes wide. "Commander, I think it is listening. Look." He pointed at the readings. "Our signals are being absorbed, redirected. It knows we're calling." "Then why the silence?" whispered another. Before the commander could respond, the bridge filled with a sudden deep sound. It wasn't a weapon, it wasn't static, it was a voice. A low, metallic tone rolled through the ship, vibrating in the walls, the floors, even in their bones. The words were distorted, alien to their ears, but the weight of them was undeniable. The communications officer froze. His screen flashed with broken symbols. Translation incomplete, but one phrase keeps repeating. A warning. "What does it say?" asked the commander. The officer swallowed. "Stay back." The bridge went silent. The words felt like a knife, sharp and cold. "Stay back?" whispered one of the younger crew. "It knows we're here. It's warning us. Why?" The science officer leaned over his console, eyes wide. "Commander, the energy spikes are rising again. Its weapons are primed. That warning may be our only chance." The commander's face was unreadable. He turned slowly toward his officers. "Transmit a message. Tell it we mean no harm. Tell it we only seek identification." The communications officer obeyed, his hands moving quickly, but his eyes never left the dark figure on the screen. The message went out. A burst of light. Across the void. Seconds passed. Nothing. Only silence. Then the warship moved again. Not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate. Its hull shifted, and one of its colossal weapons rotated. The giant cannon aligned with terrifying precision, pointing directly at the alien flagship. The crew gasped. "Shields to maximum!" shouted the commander. The ship's defenses flared to life, glowing fields of energy wrapping around their vessel. Across the fleet, other ships scrambled, shields activating, weapons charging. Panic rippled through the formation. "Commander!" cried one officer. "It's going to fire! We have to move!" "Hold position!" the commander roared. His voice shook the bridge, silencing the panic. "If it wanted us dead, we would already be gone." But even as he spoke, doubt gnawed at him. Could a single ship truly erase them all in an instant? Every instinct told him yes. The warship's cannon glowed brighter, a sphere of energy gathering at its core. The alien crew stared in horror as the weapon charged, the light so intense it cast long shadows across the bridge. "This is it," whispered one officer. His voice was almost a prayer. "We are finished." But then, just as the cannon reached its peak, the light dimmed, the weapon stopped. Instead of firing, the warship sent another sound, a different signal, sharper, clearer. The communications officer leaned in, translating as fast as he could, his face turned pale. "It says, 'Leave this place. Leave now.'" The words were followed by a sudden burst of light. Not a weapon, but a projection. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. The crew staggered back in shock. It was a human. The figure stood tall, its outline flickering with static, its face hidden in shadow, but its form was unmistakable. Broad shoulders, 2 arms, 2 legs, a shape they had only seen in old archives. In legends whispered in secret, the hologram's voice was deep, cold, and filled with authority. "This sector is not yours, it is ours. Leave or vanish." The bridge fell silent. No one moved. No one dared breathe. The young officer whispered, "It's them, the humans. They're alive." "Alive?" Another hissed. "No! This is impossible. They were destroyed. They were myths." The hologram's eyes glowed faintly, as if aware of their disbelief. It repeated, slower this time, each word heavy with menace. "Leave or vanish." Then it disappeared. The bridge was left. In silence, the only sound the heavy breathing of the crew. "Commander," The communications officer's voice trembled. "What do we do? If we stay, it will destroy us. If we leave, we admit defeat." The commander's face was unreadable, his mind racing. He had fought countless battles, faced enemies across the stars, but never had he stood before something that radiated such raw, unstoppable power. One officer leaned forward, desperation in his eyes. "We cannot face this ship. We must retreat." Another snapped, "Retreat!" and spread panic through the Empire. "No, we cannot let this legend rise again." The commander raised a hand, silencing them. His eyes locked on the dark warship, its massive form still looming over them. "This is not about pride," he said softly. "This is survival. We have seen its strength. We have heard its warning. If we disobey, none of us will live to tell the tale." The crew waited, breathless, for his decision. Finally, the commander spoke. "Order the fleet to pull back, slowly. Do not provoke it. If it lets us live, we will live." Relief washed across some faces, but fear remained etched deep in their eyes. The fleet began to move, engines powering up carefully, cautiously. The warship did not follow. It only watched, its silent presence pressing against them like a storm they barely escaped. As the alien fleet retreated into the distance, the young officer whispered words that chilled the room. "Commander, what if this is not the only one? What if more are out there?" The commander did not answer. He only stared at the shadow ship fading into the darkness, and deep inside, he knew the young officer was right. The humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The alien fleet drifted back slowly, their engines burning faint trails of blue across the dark void. Every ship moved with the same careful rhythm, afraid that one wrong step, one sudden motion, might trigger the wrath of the giant warship that hung before them. On the flagship's bridge, the commander stood stiff and silent, his eyes locked on the massive shadow that filled their view. The human vessel had not moved since the warning. It only floated, weapons glowing faintly, watching them with cold patience. "Distance increasing," reported the navigation officer, his voice shaky. "We are pulling back." The commander nodded, but kept his gaze steady. "Do not relax. Not until it vanishes from our senses." The crew obeyed, but fear clung to them like a shadow. Every beep of the scanner made them flinch. Every flicker of light on the massive ship's hull sent shivers down their spines. Then suddenly, alarm screamed across the bridge. "Commander!" the science officer shouted. "The human ship! Its energy levels are rising again!" The crew, panicked, hands flying across consoles, voices overlapping. "It's charging weapons. Shields at full. We'll never survive this." "Silence!" the commander roared, slamming his hand against the arm of his chair. The crew froze. His eyes blazed with anger, but underneath there was fear he could not hide. The screen brightened. The warship's hull came alive with streams of light, bright veins of energy running across its surface. One by one, its weapon systems awakened, their glow filling the void like stars being born. "This is not a bluff," the commander said in a low voice. "It wants us to see its power." The communications officer's hands trembled as he adjusted the signal filters. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission. No words this time, just a sound." The bridge filled with a deep, rising hum. It was not random noise. It was deliberate, a signal meant to be heard. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the walls until the crew covered their ears. "What is it?" one officer gasped. The commander's expression darkened. "It's a countdown." The words struck the crew like a blade. A timer flashed on the sensors, alien yet simple enough for them to understand. Numbers ticked down, slow, steady, merciless. "They're giving us time," whispered the young officer. "Time to run, or to die." The commander's fists clenched. Retreat meant survival, but also humiliation. The Empire would see it as weakness. But staying meant annihilation. Before he could decide, the human warship moved again. Its massive cannon rotated, but this time it did not aim directly at the fleet. Instead, it turned toward a nearby asteroid field, a cluster of rocks floating silently across the void. The countdown reached 0 with a thunderous flash. The cannon fired. A beam of pure white light shot into the asteroid field, blinding the sensors, shaking the bridge. When the glare faded, the crew gasped. The entire asteroid field was gone. Not broken, not scattered, gone, vaporized into nothingness. The science officer's voice cracked. That was only one shot. The commander's heart pounded, but his face stayed cold. It could have destroyed us. Instead, it showed us what it can do. The young officer whispered, "It's playing with us, like a predator toying with prey." Before anyone could answer, more alarms blared. Smaller weapons along the warship's hull flared to life, targeting beams sweeping across the fleet. They did not fire, but the message was clear. "We see you. We can strike at any time." "Commander!" the tactical officer shouted. "Half the fleet is breaking formation. They're panicking." On the screens, several alien ships veered away, engines burning hot as they tried to escape. "Order them." "Back!" the commander roared. "It's no use. They've cut communication." The commander's chest tightened with rage. Cowards! But even he could not blame them. Who could stand against such power? Then the warship made its next move. A smaller section of its hull opened, revealing a weapon unlike anything the aliens had seen. It pulsed with strange energy, dark and violent. "What is that?" gasped the science officer. The sensors tried to analyze it, but the data came back twisted, corrupted, unreadable. The screen filled with static. The commander narrowed his eyes. "It doesn't want us to know. Whatever that weapon is, it's beyond our understanding." As the weapon hummed, one of the fleeing alien ships screamed across the comms. "This is Scout Vessel 8. They've locked onto us." The voice cut off. On the screen, Scout Vessel 8 exploded in silence, consumed by a single beam of red light. No debris, no wreckage, only empty space where a ship had been. The bridge fell into horror. "They didn't miss," the commander said grimly. "They chose one ship. A warning to the rest." The fleet froze, none daring to move. The warship's weapons remained glowing, but it fired no more. It had made its point. The communications officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, it could destroy us all, and yet it doesn't. Why?" The commander stared at the massive vessel, its dark hull shimmering with silent menace. "Because it wants us to carry a message." The crew turned to him, eyes wide. "What message?" asked the young officer. "That humans are not gone," the commander said quietly. "They are watching, waiting, and they will strike anyone who dares enter their domain." Silence filled the bridge. No one dared argue. The truth was written in the burning remains of Scout Vessel 8. The commander gave the order with a heavy voice. "Signal the fleet. Hold position. No one runs, no one fires. We will wait and see what they do next." The warship loomed before them, glowing like a god of war. And though it had shown them only a glimpse of its power, the alien fleet understood a terrible truth. They were not the hunters here, they were the prey. The bridge was quiet, but the silence was not peace. It was the silence of fear, heavy and suffocating. The alien officers sat stiff in their seats, eyes locked on the warship that floated before them. Its weapons glowed faintly, like eyes watching from the dark. One ship destroyed, an asteroid field erased. It had proved its power without a battle. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, hands folded behind his back. His voice was steady, but inside his mind churned. "It is waiting for us, watching. Every move we make, it studies." The young officer spoke in a trembling voice. "Commander, what if this is not the first time? What if this ship has appeared before?" The word sent a shiver across the bridge. Another officer leaned forward, lowering his voice as if afraid the ship might hear him. There are Old stories, forbidden ones. They say humans once built ships like this. Weapons so strong entire empires fell. They called them ghost ships, death machines, legends that were never meant to be true. The commander's eyes narrowed. Legends are lies told to frighten children. But the science officer shook his head. No, sir. I have seen records, hidden archives, stories erased from our history. They spoke of human fleets so powerful even the greatest empires feared them. And now, he gestured toward the dark warship on the screen. Now one stands. Before us, the crew whispered nervously, voices rising like a tide. Impossible. Humans were weak. They were destroyed. They never had this kind of power. Enough! The commander's voice cut through the fear. The whispers died instantly. We are soldiers. We deal with facts, not myths. But even he could not ignore what they had seen. The communications officer cleared his throat. Commander, perhaps the myths were not lies. Perhaps they were warnings. The commander turned to him sharply. Explain. The officer swallowed hard. What if the humans never died? What if they went into hiding, building ships like this in secret, waiting until the galaxy forgot them? And now they have returned. The bridge fell silent again. The thought was terrifying. Suddenly the warship stirred. Its lights grew brighter, flowing across its massive frame like fire spreading through veins. Then, without warning, the sensors flared red. Commander! The science officer cried. It's powering something new, different from before. The readings, they're off the scale. The crew tensed, waiting for the blast that would end them. But instead of firing, the warship released a burst of energy into space. A wave of light swept across the fleet, flooding every ship, every system. Screens flickered, controls sparked, power dimmed. The crew shouted in alarm. Systems failing. Engines offline. They've disabled us. But just as quickly, the systems stabilized. The lights returned, the consoles flickered back to life. The energy wave had not destroyed them. It had only shown them that it could. The commander's face was pale, his eyes hard. It wants us to understand. Resistance is meaningless. Then the communications officer gasped. Commander, we're receiving another hologram. The bridge filled with light. And once again, the human figure appeared. The crew recoiled, but none dared move. The figure stood taller this time, clearer than before, a shadowed face, eyes glowing faintly, voice echoing with calm menace. You are trespassing, the figure said. This space is ours. Long ago your kind forgot the truth. We did not vanish, we endured, and we remember. The crew froze. The voice was not shouting, not angry, it was worse, calm, certain, absolute. The figure continued. We built ships to guard the silence. We built weapons to end wars before they began. Empires rose and fell, but we remained. You will not take this place from us. The young officer whispered. It's true. The legends, they were real. The figure's head turned as if it had heard him. Legends are truths you chose to bury. The hologram flickered, then faded. The commander clenched his jaw. For the first time in his long career, he felt small, like an insect, beneath the gaze of something ancient and unstoppable. What do we do, Commander? One officer asked, his voice desperate. We cannot fight this. We cannot flee fast enough. What choice do we have? The commander's eyes stayed fixed on the warship. We obey, he said quietly. For now, we obey and we survive. The crew nodded, but their fear deepened. If the humans had endured, if they had hidden their power for centuries, then what else waited in the dark? Was this only one ship or the first of many? The science officer whispered, if more of these exist, then no empire in the galaxy is safe. The young officer turned, his face pale. Commander, what if they are already here, watching every fleet, every world, waiting for the right moment to strike? No one answered. The question hung in the air like a death sentence. The commander finally spoke, his voice cold. Then the galaxy has lived in a dream, and tonight it wakes to the truth. On the screen, the warship hovered silently, its weapons glowing, its presence undeniable. The aliens knew they had not discovered a forgotten myth, they had awakened a predator, and predators did not share. The warship floated in silence, a black shadow against the stars. Its weapons glowed faintly, ready but patient, like claws waiting to strike. On the alien flagship, the crew sat frozen at their stations, each one staring at the screen, afraid, even to breathe. They had seen death in many forms, but never like this. This was not an enemy. This was judgment. The commander stood at the center of the bridge, his back straight though his chest tightened with fear. He had faced rebellions, pirates, rival empires, yet nothing had ever made him feel so small. His officers watched him, waiting for his order. None dared speak. At last, the communications officer broke the silence. "Commander, they are transmitting again." The bridge lights dimmed as the hologram appeared. The human figure stood tall, its face still hidden in shadow, its voice calm but heavy with power. "You stand in a place that is not yours," the figure said. "This sector is ours to guard. You were warned. Leave or be erased." The young officer whispered, "We can't fight them. One ship destroyed an entire fleet. If more exist—" He stopped, unable to finish. The commander raised a hand to silence him. His voice was firm, though inside he trembled. "What do you want from us?" The figure's head tilted slightly. "Survival is a choice. Obedience is the price." The words struck the crew like thunder. One officer whispered, "They mean to control us, to rule us from the shadows." The science officer leaned forward, his eyes wide. "No, not rule. Guard. They said they built ships to stop wars, to end them before they began. They are not conquerors. They are something worse." The hologram turned its glowing eyes on him as if hearing the words. "You understand. We do not seek thrones or slaves. We seek silence, order. The galaxy forgot the cost of chaos. We did not." The commander's jaw tightened. "And if we refuse?" The hologram's reply was simple. "Then you will vanish, as others have." The bridge went cold. The crew looked at one another in horror. The commander felt his heart pound. If what the human said was true, then countless empires, countless fleets had already fallen to this hidden power. History had not forgotten them by accident. They had been erased. "Why reveal yourselves now?" the commander demanded. "Why not remain hidden?" For the first time, the figure's voice grew sharper. "Because your kind grew arrogant. You built weapons too dangerous, ships too many. You spread your wars like fire. We watched long enough. Now we remind the galaxy of the truth. You are prey in our shadow." The hologram flickered, then vanished. The screen returned to the image of the warship, still silent, still waiting. The young officer turned, his face pale. "Commander, what do we do?" The commander's fists clenched. He wanted to resist, to prove his people were not cowards, but deep inside he knew the truth. One defiance would mean death, and not just for his crew, for his entire empire. "Transmit a message," he said finally, his voice like stone. "We withdraw." The communications officer hesitated. "And when the High Council demands answers?" The commander's eyes narrowed. "Then we tell them nothing. We say the region is cursed, unfit for travel. We keep this secret, or we doom ourselves." The crew exchanged fearful glances, but none argued. They had seen too much. Engines roared to life, and the alien fleet began to turn, retreating slowly from the sector. The warship did not move. It simply watched, its weapons glowing like a warning, its silence louder than any threat. As the fleet pulled back, the science officer whispered, "If they have hidden for so long, how many ships like that exist? 10, 100, 1,000? The commander did not answer. He stared at the dark shape fading into the distance. His chest felt heavy, not only with fear, but with the weight of truth. "Perhaps," he said at last, "the galaxy has never belonged to us. Perhaps it never will." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, fleeing into the safety of known space. But safety was an illusion now. Every shadow, every star might hide another human warship, another ghost from legend. Far behind them, in the silent dark, the warship powered down its weapons. Its lights dimmed, its form blending once more with the void. But inside, the ship's hidden crew, or perhaps its ancient intelligence, spoke quietly. "They have seen enough," a voice said. Another replied, calm and patient. "Yes, fear will spread faster than fire. Their empires will tremble, and none will dare test us again." Silence filled the warship's halls, broken only by the hum of endless power. And then a final voice spoke. Not human, not alien, something deeper, older. "The galaxy sleeps in lies, but when it dreams of freedom, we will wake." The warship drifted back into the shadows, waiting, eternal and unseen. The legend of humanity was no longer a whisper. It was real, it was alive, and it was watching.